YouTube, today we're going to go over the Rayogre team that I use for back-to-back battles featuring Scizor, Ludicolo, and Rhyperior. Let's get started and roll the episode. So why Rayogre? Rayquaza is something I think is really good in the format right now because of all the Sun teams with Charizard. It's really good against Charizard, good against the Groudon teams, not bad against Zacian because it can threaten it with like Max Quakes, which I thought was really solid. And I thought it's a pretty good Pokemon shutting down a lot of the weather teams in general. So I really like the idea of Rayquaza. I've seen Rayquaza Zacian quite a bit and I felt like, you know, there's maybe better partners that could be utilized. Zacian Rayquaza also has like a really similar partners that are just really common in the format and it didn't seem too exciting to me. But then I was like looking at some old 2016 games and remembered Rayquaza Kyogre was a thing, and the fact that Kyogre with Rayquaza can really hit the Groudons pretty hard, hits the Charizards really strong with the airlock, preventing that sunlight from affecting Kyogre's weather. It seemed, ooh, that could be really fun. And I also was thinking about Scizor actually. Since I can't run Zacian if I'm running Kyogre, I thought, you know what? I think Scizor is actually not that bad in this format. I do want to try it out, and of course it's really good against the Calyx Ice Rider specifically, because Calyx Ice Rider is something you do have to threaten when you use Rayogre. So I thought, okay, maybe I can use those three and see what kind of team I can form. So how was the team formed? It started off with the Scizor Rayquaza Kyogre core that I was really inspired from 2016. Rayquaza Kyogre for the Sun matchup because a lot of Sun teams have been running around in the format. And then Scizor, even though Scizor was meant to deal with Xerneas back in 2016, it's still a very important role because even though Xerneas isn't really used in the format, there is still one new threat, and that is the Calyx Ice Rider. Scizor is actually decent against Calyx Ice Rider and Palkia teams under the right conditions, especially if they don't have Flamethrower Palkia. It makes it a lot easier. Then the next Pokemon I decided to add was going to be Incineroar. The Dark typing is fantastic to deal with Calyx Shadow Rider as well as the Veltals as a switch-in. I really do like Incineroar because it helps against Fairthorn, Kartana, just helps with Zacian. Of course, with Intimidate's really good for the core. And yeah, it just really helps out with a lot of general stuff. And of course, Ice Rider, again, another huge threat to Rayquaza Kyogre. Incineroar helps make it a bit more tame. The next Pokemon I decided to add, I knew I wanted a Lightning Rod Mon or something that can help against Regieleki specifically, because Regieleki and Zapdos were actually two Pokemon I was really scared of. It does so much damage, I feel like, with Max Lightning, where my team doesn't switch into it well. Even with Assault Vest Rayquaza, it's not really taking the Max Lightnings as well as it did in previous formats where it was Assault Vest plus Delta Stream normally. So we don't have that option anymore. So I needed Rhyperior or Raichu. Those were the main Lightning Rod Mons that I was considering here. Now, there were upsides and downsides to both of them. Raichu, of course, Nuzzle, speed control, fast with support, Eerie Impulse could be really cool, Electro Web. But the thing is, it didn't really do much damage, and that was kind of the thing I was a little bit concerned about. And the Rhyperior could do the damage a little bit slower, but I felt like I wanted Rhyperior because I could hit a lot of the threats that I couldn't hit with Raichu, specifically the Curums, which I felt like were really big threats. The Yveltal, which I can fire off a Rock Wrecker and I don't even have to max. I could just draw out that Rock Wrecker and I would be able to dish out a huge amount of damage to both. And I thought, okay, I think that's pretty worth it. Raichu plays a little bit too defensively, and I don't know how much defense I can really have on the team because Raichu's already generally frail. I don't really like it too much because Rayquaza, Assault Vest Rayquaza isn't as bulky as it was back in 2019 just because of the no Delta Stream from its Mega Evolution. So I felt like I couldn't play too passive Raichu, especially with his Choice Scarf Kyogre as well. I decided, you know, I need offense, and I felt like Rhyperior allowed me to get good offensive damage output, especially with that Rock Wrecker as a last ditch resort. The last slot on this team, I originally was not going to have a grass type on it, but then opposing Kyogre just ended up hurting me way too much with Scizor, Incineroar, and Rhyperior taking too much damage from Water Spout. Thunder or Max Lightning can threaten the Kyogre, and of course Ice Beam Hailstorm can threaten the Rayquaza. I needed a Pokemon that could switch into Kyogre and still deal with it decently reliably. So I wanted Ludicolo on this team because I felt about Kartana and Rillaboom. I don't think Rillaboom's too bad. The only problem with Rillaboom that I had is I didn't have a really good fast mode to the team. I kind of lacked speed control in both Tailwind and Trick Room. I wanted something that could help me with speed at least, because the only thing I really have is a Scarf Kyogre, and that's not exactly super fast in the format where there's Tailwind, there's Airstreams. I just felt like, okay, I'm kind of lacking that department. I need some kind of speed. And I felt, okay, you know what? I think Ludicolo works here because it can take on a lot of Kyogres. It can switch into Water Spout decently. And yeah, it could throw off the powerful Leaf Storms. I have Icy Wind speed control that I want to try out. And offensive Ludicolo can threaten Zacian, which I really did want to try out because I can threaten with a Max Scizor in the rain, which could be an option, as well as a backup to Gastron, because my only Gastron answer really was going to be the Rayquaza. So I felt like it filled those criteria, and that was how the 6 was formed. All right, let's go over the items, the movesets, and the spreads of the team. We have Swarm, Safety Goggles, Scizor up first with the Iron Head, X-Scizor, Swords Dance, and Protect. Normally with Scizor, we would see the Technician Bullet Punch set. However, with Dynamax, Bullet Punch is a lot weaker because of Dynamax, and Bullet Punch is a really weak max move. So I really want to try out the Swarm set because I did plan on Dynamaxing my Scizor in the matchups I did plan to bring it in, specifically against the Calyx Ice Rider and Palkia. And yeah, so I decided to have Iron Head X-Scizor, which is really useful for the max bug. I like Sword Stance because it can set up against a lot of passive stuff. If they don't lead to Palkia or Kyogre, I can just set up a Sword Stance and Scizor can really threaten. And then Protect and Preserve the Scizor. The Swarm is the really useful ability, and Safety Goggles. So I wasn't sure what item I want to run on the Scizor. I thought about Lumberry. I decided, you know what? I think I'm fine with Safety Goggles because with Calyx Ice Rider, they normally have a Moongus, and I really don't like the idea of getting spored around, and I would like to avoid the redirection. So I thought, you know, if they lead the Amoonguss and try to spore me or Rage Powder my attacks, my Scizor can just ignore it and go for Sword Stance. So that was the idea of having the Safety Goggles on the Scizor. The EV spread for Scizor, 236 HP gives it a 175 HP stat, which reduces the amount of damage it takes from like burn or hail, which is really nice. With Safety Goggles, it might not be as necessary, and you could go 244 to gain a little bit from grassy terrain, but this is just the Scizor EV spread I generally use for the most part. 156 Adamant gives it an extra stat point in the attack, and it's pretty good because it does good damage outside of Sword Stance and doesn't need max attack to dish out good amounts of damage with Sword Stance. I like having the extra in special defense because Scizor, I do want it to take special hits, especially from like Palkia and Kyogre, so having more special defense is just really nice. The 20 defense was just a bit left over, and then 4 extra in speed. Now for the steel type Scizor, I thought Scizor was pretty cool because I didn't want a Pokemon that was weak to Max Quake, especially with the final product of the team that I was looking at it, because I didn't want 3 Pokemon weak to Max Ground. Because I could be switching around in the Groudon matchup, so I did want only 2 ground weaknesses maximum. I didn't like dealing with Calyx Ice Rider and switching into Max Quake being super effective. I didn't really like that, so that's one reason I didn't use Metagross or Stakataka, especially because that could be really important in those matchups, because Max Quake still does a lot of damage if it does have the policy on the boost. So I did go with the Scizor. I could have went with Escavalier and had the Overcoat Escavalier, so I could have chose a different item and had a Pokemon that was like slower than the Calyx Ice Rider, so it's faster in Trick Room. However, most of the time I wanted the Scizor to get like a Sword Stance up or Steel Spike potentially, because I wanted the Scizor outside of Trick Room, because I was generally able to stall out Trick Room, and then I wanted it to outspeed the Calyx Ice Rider in that case. So that's the reason why I decided to have Scizor over Escavalier. It also that Scizor was generally faster than a lot of the Incineroar, so it could punish it potentially if they're a slow Incineroar. I can get like a Sword Stance and really threaten with like maybe a potential max bug after enough chip damage. So that is another reason I decided to go with Scizor over Escavalier. But I do think Escavalier is a pretty fair replacement. It depends on how you play the team, and a few different adjustments would probably have to be made for Escavalier to fit in. Next Pokemon we have is the Choice Scarf Kyogre, and really there's not really much to say about it. I went with Choice Scarf Kyogre because I felt like it was a pretty good partner with Rayquaza. I like the idea of outspeeding Charizard and being able to get a Water Spout off before it attacks. I think that was the idea of having this Choice Scarf Kyogre, especially for Charizard in the Sun matchup and just hitting Zacian, because Zacian's a Pokemon that's a little bit annoying for Rayogre because Play Rough does quite a bit of damage. I like the idea of Kyogre being able to dish out a lot of damage, potentially even OHKOing the Zacian with like helping him Rhyperior, for instance. I like having that speed advantage with the Choice Scarf, so I felt like it was just useful here. With the Drizzle ability, of course, Water Spout, Orchard Pulse, Ice Beam, Thunder, it's a pretty standard Scarf Kyogre set. For the most part, the coverage is what I wanted. I thought about Scald, but I didn't think I'd be playing too much Wide Guard in the format. And then the EV spread, it's just really simple, just max special attack, max speed with 4 HP, as I didn't really feel like I needed a little bit of extra bulk. It's just Scarf Kyogre, it does a lot of damage. It really just puts on the pressure against a lot of teams, and it is something that opponents do have to respect. Next Pokemon is the Focus Sash Lightning Rod Rhyperior with Rock Wrecker, High Horsepower, Helping Hand, and Protect. I've seen Focus Sash Rhyperior in a few other of the previous series with restricted Pokemon, and I recently tested it on a Series 12 team with Dialga, and it was just really fun. I think Focus Sash allowing it to be able to survive, you know, there's a lot of Pokemon that threaten the OHKO on Rhyperior, Rillaboom with Grassy Glide, Kyogre Water Spout, the Zacians with Behemoth Blade still do a lot of damage, and I felt Focus Sash really helps out. And Rhyperior, they don't expect Helping Hand in a lot of cases. Lightning Rod can be really great support. I can still one-shot Regieleki, which is pretty good. Rock Wrecker is a really insane move to deal with, like Yveltal, Kyurem White. I really like this Pokemon, so I felt, okay, I'll try it out and see how it goes. So I do have this Lightning Rod Rhyperior here with the Rock Wrecker, high horsepower, Helping Hand and Protect. Helping Hand for the Scarf Kyogre allows it to pick up some knockouts that initially wouldn't. And I also really like Helping Hand with just Scarf Kyogre in general, just allows it to really put on pressure. Protect and Preserve the Rhyperior, high horsepower, of course, because I only have one ground immunity. I might as well just have high horsepower instead of Earthquake. And then Rock Wrecker, I could have had Stone Edge or Rock Slide, but I really like the idea of if they try to focus down the Rhyperior, I can go for a last ditch Rock Wrecker, dish out a bunch of damage, and yeah, it can really affect against the max Kyurems or the max Yveltals. So Rock Wrecker was just a nice move to have as a last ditch effort. The Ear Spread is pretty simple for a Focus Sash mon. It's 4 HP, max attack, max speed with Inanimate Nature because I want the maximum damage from the Rock Wrecker, and there really isn't that much to outspeed with a Jolly Nature. Otherwise, there really isn't really any difference in speed, and I really do like the high horsepower because it just dishes out so much damage to where high horsepower from Adamant Rhyperior can knock out a non-bulky Zacian, and then it's a roll-on bulky Zacian. So that's like how incredible this Rhyperior can be. And it just does a good amount of damage while being nice support. I actually really did like Rhyperior while using this team, and it was a really fun Pokemon to bring. Next Pokemon we have is the Assault Vest Rayquaza with the Airlock ability with Draco Meteor, Air Slash, Earth Power, Energy Ball. I think this thing's underrated in this format, and I feel like there's more than just Zacian Rayquaza because I think Rayquaza is a really cool Pokemon, of course. It's a decent speed tier. 95 is nice for the Groudons and Kyogres. I wish it was a little bit faster because you still have to invest a lot in order to outspeed like Calyx Shadow Rider and Jolly Zacians with an Airstream boost. But I still think it's a really cool Pokemon. Doesn't get the Delta Stream like it did in previous formats with the Mega Evolution. However, Assault Vest Rayquaza can still take a decent amount of hits, which is pretty good, especially against like Charizard with no Sun is really nice. Airlock, of course, fantastic ability for the Kyogre support in this format. I did want to run the Special Rayquaza because with Assault Vest, I do feel like the Special variant is better here. So I did go with the Draco Meteor, Air Slash, Earth Power, and Energy Ball. Draco Meteor, of course, the strong Dragon type move. I do like Max Dragon a lot. It can dish out quite a bit of damage, and really nice to hit like Palkia and a few other Pokemon that I could fear. Air Slash, I had Air Slash over Hurricane because I don't like the accuracy of Hurricane, and I don't really mind having Air Slash, and I like clicking it outside of Dynamax, which is cool. And I don't have the Rain with the Airlock exactly because no matter what, even if Rain's up, Airlock is preventing my Hurricane from being 100% accurate. Just keep Air Slash. I think it's pretty safe. Earth Power, of course, for Max Quake, hitting Regieleki, Zacian, and a few other Pokemon, which is really important. Then Energy Ball to catch the Gastrodons off guard. Because my initial idea when I started off with the Kyogre Rayquaza core was having Rayquaza Kyogre. They are going to bring the Gastrodon because it has Ice Beam as coverage for the Rayquaza, and it can wall the Kyogre, which is really important in the weather matchup. And then Energy Ball, snipe the Gastrodon. And it's a really huge advantage where Kyogre with the Airlock can really go in against the Sun teams. So the EV spread here, I knew I wanted offensive, I would wanted some bulk, and I wasn't sure where my speed was. I wanted a lot of damage output, and I didn't want to go like timid, even though it outspec Calyx Shadow Rider after an Airstream or Jolly Zacians. I just felt like it's taking so much investment, or causes either not doing enough damage afterward, or I would just be not bulky enough to take attacks like I want to. So I kind of compromised. I went with 134 speed stat because after an Airstream it allows me to outspeed Adamant Zacian. I felt like that was pretty good enough because I did have Intimidate to slow down the Jolly Zacians, and of course Jolly Zacians don't run as much bulk, so Kyogre is generally more favorable in the Jolly Zacian matchup. So that is the reason I decided to go with the modest 134 speed stats, and then afterward I decided to invest a lot into special attack because I want Rayquaza to really hit hard, do as much damage as I possibly can. And then I invested the rest into bulk and special defense. I added a little bit extra into special defense to take advantage of the Assault Vest to take a little bit better from Ice Beam and a few other moves. But overall, Rayquaza was pretty solid. It didn't take it moves as well as it did in the previous format with Delta Stream, of course, being really useful. However, Assault Vest Rayquaza was still decently bulky, was able to dish out some pretty big damage, and the Energy Ball was able to catch quite a few Gastrodons, which I was very pleasantly surprised about. Next Pokemon we have Citrus Berry, Intimidate, Incineroar with Flare Blitz, Darkest Lariat, Fake Out, and Parting Shot. Not really much to say about Incineroar. It's just a good support Pokemon. Citrus Berry I felt like was pretty nice because I didn't feel like I needed Chople. Shucka Berry wasn't really that useful. I had my goggles on Scizor, so I felt, okay, what other items can I run? And Citrus Berry is just a really nice comfort pick. I'm really comfortable with Citrus Berry and Incineroar, or like Figgy Berry. So I felt, you know what, I'll just try Citrus Berry. I think it could work out quite a bit, especially when I'm playing around against the Zacians. And if I'm switching in like Play Roughs or the Sacred Swords, it's just nice to have a little bit of extra recovery just in case. Flare Blitz, Darkest Lariat, Fake Out, Parting Shot, pretty standard moveset. The Darkest Lariat I ran over Throat Chop because I like hitting the Steel Restrictors potentially, because I don't exactly have the best matchup against the Steel Restrictors, so just having Darkest Lariat as a way to hit like Solgaleo or Necrosa Dustmane after max just seems like a pretty good option. And then the EV spread, I went with like a more Spadef Incineroar. Now, I didn't run like a full Spadef Incineroar like I normally do, because Xerneas has obviously been not much of a factor in this format. So I felt, okay, I can afford to run more defense to take on these Zacians a little bit better, especially the Sacred Swords and the Play Rough that I'm switching into. I just added a bit more defense than my standard Incineroar that usually lived the Xerneas Moonblast. Otherwise, the speed and pretty much everything else has remained the same. Incineroar is just a really good Pokemon that I could pivot into and really just be able to give Fake Out support, Parting Shot out, and reposition for Kyogre, which is really nice. Final Pokemon on this team is the Life Orb Ludicolo with Swift Swim for the ability of Hydro Pump, Leaf Storm, Icy Wind, and Protect, mainly to deal with opposing Kyogre, and can still dish out a lot of pressure against Zacian, which is really nice as well. Speed Control is also really nice with the Icy Wind and the Swift Swim. So Ludicolo was a pretty nice pick here. The simple job of the Ludicolo to really switch into Kyogre attacks and dish out quite a bit of damage with Leaf Storm, and provide offensive pressure if I do decide to go with like a full rain committance of Ludicolo plus Kyogre. I felt like that was pretty nice to have there. The EV spread on Ludicolo, I have max special attack to dish out as much damage as possible, especially with that Life Orb. The speed, I want to outspeed Calyx Shadow Rider after the Swift Swim, so I decided I would go with at least 112, and I decided I would go with like an extra stat point, so I went with 113, and then the rest was invested where I have 28 HP into HP, which gives me, if I decide not to max Ludicolo, 159, which is if I add one more HP stat, it'll give me 160, which means I'm taking an extra point of Life Orb chip. And then the rest was just added to defense, so I can maybe take on like a Zacian Behemoth Blade a little bit better. But overall, Ludicolo was still pretty strong. I didn't bring it too much, but it was still really nice to have against opposing Kyogres, because it was a Pokemon that could really take the Kyogre attacks well and dish out a good amount of damage with Leaf Storm or Max Overgrow in those cases. So how to use the team and what are the common leads with the team? Choice Scarf Kyogre is the main centralization of this team, because Kyogre can really efficiently do a lot of work, whether it's in the early game where you can dish out a lot of damage and set up for something in the back, or you could just save Kyogre for the end game and then it comes out, dish out a lot of damage to weakened Pokemon and picks up the knockout with powerful Warp Impulses or Water Spouts in the rain. Overall, you have a lot of tools to set up the Kyogre. You have Incineroar with Intimidate and Parting Shot that can get in the Kyogre safely. You have the Helping Hand on the Rhyperior, which can help out quite a bit for the Kyogre to dish out good amounts of damage as a lead. Ludicolo with the Swift Swim and really take advantage of the rain, or set up for the Kyogre with Icy Wind speed control. The Rayquaza, of course, helps out against the Sun mode especially. And yeah, there are definitely a lot of ways to set up a Choice Scarf Kyogre. So what are the common leads with the team? Kyogre is generally a really strong lead option because it can dish out quite a bit of damage. You have quite a few options to lead with it. The Rhyperior can offer Helping Hand. If the opponent doesn't have a way to get something faster with like Priority Tailwind, you can go for Helping Hand plus Water Spout and really just threaten, because a lot of things can live a Water Spout with the Choice Scarf on Kyogre because of no Mystic Water Boost, but the Helping Hand kind of can help with the KOs, which is really important. Incineroar, of course, because you can go for Fake Out, Parting Shot, you can switch out the Kyogre reposition, is a really strong option. Ludicolo, of course, with the Swift Swim, because you can threaten Max Geysers, very powerful with Water Spout, really dishes out really good amounts of damage right there. And of course, Rayquaza plus Kyogre is a lead that if you just want to just throw off like Energy Balls and try to snipe the Gastrodon, that is a potential lead you can go for. Then other leads, I say Rayquaza is a pretty good one, because you could lead with the Rayquaza and just to like open up the doors, because Rayquaza can get some Airstreams up for setup, dish out a good amount of damage, and help prepare for Kyogre in the back to sweep. You have Incineroar, which is a really good lead with Rayquaza, especially. I do like leading Rayquaza Incineroar a lot with the Parting Shot, and the Fake Out support for Rayquaza is just really nice to have. I think Rayquaza can also lead with like Ludicolo, and then you have Mind Games with the Kyogre as a switch in. You could also lead Rayquaza plus the Rhyperior and have Helping Hands situations. And yeah, Ludicolo can also lead with any of these. Ludicolo is really good because you always have the Kyogre lead that you can go for this range straight away, or you can like lead Ludicolo plus Incineroar and Rayquaza and also have that Kyogre mind game too. Then one other lead I really like leading is Scizor. Scizor stuff is really good. It really just depends on the Palkia. Calyx Ice Riders, usually you want to scout for like fire moves generally, but Scizor is really good in that matchup where you're going to be able to get like Swords Dances off and potentially just Steel Spike up to stall out the Calyx Ice Rider Trick Room, and Scizor can really do a good amount of damage to the Palkia plus the Calyx Ice Rider teams, especially their partners, because you can ignore the Spore from the Amoonguss, which is really helpful here. And Rhyperior is also not a bad lead because you can dish out a lot of damage to Pokemon that would normally threaten the Kyogre Rayquaza mode, like the Kyurem stuff, the Yveltal stuff, and threaten with a Rock Wrecker, and Incineroar can help with Fake Out support, and with the Focus Sash, Rhyperior can usually live one move and throw off a really powerful attack. And that is the show. I hope you all enjoyed the thought process went behind the Rayogre team. I think it's a really fun team. This is definitely something I really had a lot of enjoyment playing with. The Kyogre Rayquaza was really good against the Sun teams. The Scizor was really good against the Calyx Ice Rider stuff, which I really did enjoy. And Lightning Rod, Rhyperior, the Life of Ludicolo. It was really fun when they were able to get to shine. But yeah, it's a really fun team in general. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you try out the team with the rental code on your screen, available for 2 weeks. The details of the team is available in the basement down below in the description. And make sure you check out the rest of my Series 12 content with a lot of fun teams and a lot of cool Pokemon, including the videos of this team if you have missed them. That's going to be it for me. Have a great day, people, and until we bow again, I'll catch y'all later.